Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Hoven, Vice Chairman Udall, Senator Murkowski, members of the committee for inviting me to testify today on legislation that is critically important to Indian country. My name is Michelle Demmert, and I'm an enrolled citizen of Central Council, Tlingit and Haida, Indian Tribes of Alaska, where I am also the elected Chief Justice of our Supreme Court. Tlingit and Haida is a federally recognized tribe with over 30,000 citizens serving 18 villages and communities spread over 43,000 square miles within southeast Alaska. Our citizens are among the largest, most isolated, and most geographically dispersed tribal populations nationwide. Most of our communities have no roads in or out and must rely on planes and boats for both day-to-day needs and emergencies. About 1/2 of our citizens live in our villages and the other half in urban areas like Seattle, Juneau, and Anchorage. Unfortunately, excuse me. The bills before you provide a path to change. We welcome many of the reforms included in the bills under discussion today and recognize the importance of improving protocols, data sharing, and coordination. However, real lasting change will come only when the essential role that tribal governments must play in developing and implementing solutions is fully recognized. For the 229 Indian tribes in Alaska, it requires our full inclusion under current and any future legislation. These bills continue the progress made under VAWA 2013. The VAWA 2013 tribal provisions, reaffirming the inherent authority of Indian tribes to prosecute non-Indians for some DV-related crimes, was a positive step forward, but more is needed. The current criminal system fails to protect tribal people and tribal communities. Unfortunately, as the members of the committee and Indian tribes know, Native victims are more likely to be injured as a result of violent victimization, more likely to need services, and are significantly less likely to have access to services compared to non-Native counterparts. Alaska Native women are especially at risk and are overrepresented in domestic violence crimes by 250%. The urgent question of the day is immediate passage and implementation of the necessary legislation to provide Native children and other victims with the same protections as what was provided for women in VAWA 2013. I also want to note that DV is rarely, if ever, a crime committed in isolation. There are often other victims. The National Congress of American Indians 5-year report on the exercise of VAWA jurisdiction has reported positive results with the recognition of a tribe's inherent authority over DV crimes. Tribal legal systems are working. People are being convicted or acquitted as the facts dictate. Many of the concerns expressed by opponents of the provisions have not come true. Tribal courts are upholding the rights of defendants, and no defendant has requested federal court review. On the other side, the concerns of tribes of crimes not being punished is still occurring. Perpetrators of crimes against children and elders in the home, crimes against law enforcement, corrections, and the courts related to the DV incident cannot be prosecuted by tribal governments. In addition, we are seeing the lack of prosecutions within Indian country and on Indian lands of crimes of sexual assault, stalking, and/or trafficking committed by a non-Indian. I'll provide you an illustration from a tribe located in the state of Michigan. A non-Indian man in an intimate relationship with a tribal member from the Sault Ste. Marie tribe moved in with her and her 16-year-old daughter. After the man began unwanted sexual advances on the girl, sending inappropriate text messages and on one occasion groping the daughter, the tribe charged the defendant with domestic abuse and attempted to tie the sexual assault against the daughter to a pattern of abuse against the mother in order to fit it into VAWA. The tribal court dismissed the charges for lack of jurisdiction, and the defendant left the victim's home. 4 months later, he was arrested by state police for kidnapping and repeatedly raping a 14-year-old tribal member. The kidnapping and rape of a minor could have been prevented if the tribe had been able to exercise jurisdiction in the first case. The 14-year-old will suffer from this violence her entire life. Change did not happen in time for these victims. 2 of the bills before you today, S-290 and S-288, would change that, and I strongly support their passage. In Alaska, 228 of the 229 tribes are effectively unable to take advantage of the protections of VAWA 2013 because it requires the crime to have occurred within Indian country, which Alaska does not have. We would similarly be unable to make use of the authorities in these 2 bills and ask that you adopt H.R. 1585 language around Alaska and create a pilot project that will enable tribes to build the infrastructure necessary for our communities. Our communities are suffering with high rates of murders, many of which remain unsolved. In our Alaska communities, our tribal women and leaders are the first responders to crime scenes and must await hours or even days for law enforcement to arrive and begin their investigation. Sadly, the evidence is often stale or unusable, even with safeguards. As for the MMIW crisis, substantial change is needed. While increasing the response to MMIW cases is important, prioritizing attention to providing advocacy and support to women and girls to prevent abductions and murders is critical. Support is needed at the front line where women and girls are experiencing a spectrum of violence from birth to death. Support from the federal government for these much-needed services now, in addition to the criminal justice reform, will help save Native women's lives. I thank you for your attention to these bills and to your support for real meaningful change. The bills before you are urgently needed, will save lives across Indian country, and I urge every member of this committee to support them. Gunas Chish Hawa. Thank you.